It just happened. A team of scientists mapping the depths of Loch Ness has made the most disturbing discovery in its history. Using cutting-edge sonar and deep-spectrum AI imaging, they've detected something massive, something alive, moving beneath the surface. Officials have already sealed off sections of the lake, refusing to release footage. Witnesses describe lights under the water, echoing sounds, and a creature unlike anything science can explain. Could this be the proof that generations of believers have waited for? Or is something far stranger unfolding in the Highlands tonight? Before we reveal the shocking data they uncovered, make sure you're subscribed, because what you're about to hear might change everything we thought we knew about the Loch Ness Monster. It happened just after 2 a.m. when the Mariana 4 research vessel floated silently over Loch Ness. For weeks, the Highland Deep Scan Initiative had mapped the depths of the lake using next-generation sonar capable of detecting movement smaller than a fish. But that night, a single reading froze the crew in disbelief. A massive shape, roughly 40 feet long, appeared more than 800 feet below the surface, moving against the current. The technician assumed it was a malfunction, but when he recalibrated, the object shifted again, rising through the water. Dr. Ilara Monroe, the lead scientist, ordered a thermal sweep. Moments later, the screen pulsed red, heat deep within the lake where nothing warm-blooded should exist. Then, through the hydrophones, came a low hum. At first, it sounded mechanical, but the rhythm was too precise, almost like a heartbeat. The noise grew louder until the sonar began distorting. Then, silence. The object vanished. Before anyone could react, the entire ship flickered. Lights dimmed, sonar froze, and for 5 long seconds, every electronic system went dead. The crew rushed to the deck. The surface of the lake rippled unnaturally, followed by a sudden burst of bubbles. Someone swore they saw a silvery form, gliding just beneath the reflection of the moon. When power returned, the sonar auto-logged a single frame, a faint outline resembling vertebrae, an organic structure. At dawn, unmarked boats arrived, claiming restricted activity. They seized the drives and instructed the crew to stay silent. But one technician leaked a single sonar image before the data was wiped. It showed the massive shape in motion, accompanied by one automated classification tag from the onboard AI, biological. That word changed everything. What began as a scientific mapping expedition was now a containment operation, and whatever was down there, it wasn't finished moving. By sunrise, Loch Ness no longer looked like a research site. It looked like a lockdown. Locals who lived near the shore awoke to see military-style boats anchored at opposite ends of the lake, their floodlights cutting across the mist. Roadblocks were quietly erected along the A82, with officers claiming it was for environmental protection. But no one had ever seen environmental crews armed with automatic rifles. Within hours, signs appeared reading "Restricted Access. Government Operations in Progress." The Mariana 4 was impounded before its crew could disembark. Officials in black jackets boarded, collecting laptops, sonar drives, even handwritten logs. Dr. Monroe demanded answers. "This is scientific property," she protested, but the response was cold. Not anymore. That night, the research vessel was towed to a naval facility 2 towns over. The next morning, every digital file connected to the expedition vanished from the team's shared servers. It was as if their entire mission had never existed. Meanwhile, residents around the loch began noticing strange activity. Helicopters hovered low over the water at night, and bright blue lights flickered beneath the surface, in the same area where the sonar anomaly had been recorded. Fishermen reported hearing what sounded like metal scraping below their boats, as if something large was moving against the rocky bottom. Others claimed the air itself seemed charged, like static before a thunderstorm. A few locals managed to capture brief videos before they were taken down. One clip, only 6 seconds long, showed what looked like a black cylindrical object floating just under the surface before submerging without a splash. A metallic hum echoed as it disappeared. Soon after, social media posts from the region were flagged and removed for misinformation. Late one night, an encrypted email was sent to Dr. Monroe from an unknown address. The message contained no signature, only one line of text. "It's not an animal. It's still moving." The following morning, Monroe's university contract was quietly terminated. The official statement cited unethical data handling. She stopped responding to colleagues entirely. Those who worked with her said she left Scotland the next day, but rumors spread that she hadn't gone far, that she was still watching the lake from somewhere in the hills, waiting for the next movement beneath the water. The legend of Loch Ness had always been about what might live down there, but now, for the first time, it seemed that whatever it was didn't want to be found. For days, authorities claimed nothing unusual had been found in Loch Ness. Official statements described the military presence as a joint training exercise, while national media echoed the same script. But then, fragments of deleted data began surfacing online. A group of digital archivists from Edinburgh, calling themselves the Deep Archive, had been monitoring the research team's cloud backups before the wipe. What they recovered sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Among the recovered files was a low-resolution sonar frame labeled 42A_secondary echo, believed to be from the moment just before the blackout aboard the Mariana 4th. Unlike the original biological scan, this one showed a secondary form beside it, smaller, roughly half the size, but mirroring the first creature's movement exactly. Experts who analyzed the image noticed something else. Both shapes emitted a faint electromagnetic field, as if generating their own power. Within hours of its leak, the files spread across Reddit, Discord, and encrypted science forums. Then, one by one, accounts that shared it began disappearing. Accounts suspended for policy violations, removed for security concerns. It was clear someone was cleaning the internet, but not fast enough. The data had already been copied thousands of times. The scientists who reviewed the image privately said it didn't match anything biological known to Earth's taxonomy. The body structure was serpentine, but the density patterns were inconsistent. Parts appeared metallic, others organic. Dr. Ingrid Vale, a biophysicist who examined the signal map, said in a leaked message, "It's like something built itself from what was available down there." Meanwhile, sonar technicians in nearby research stations started reporting new interference whenever they scanned Loch Ness. It wasn't random static, it pulsed in repeating sequences, like coded data. One pattern stood out, 3 rising tones followed by 2 short bursts. It repeated every 11 hours. Locals began hearing the hum again too, low, steady, vibrating through the water late at night. Fishermen said their compasses started spinning near Urquhart Bay. The next morning, the Deep Archive posted one final message before going dark. "We found movement again. Not 1, not 2, at least 5. The post vanished 10 minutes later, but screenshots remained. Proof that whatever lived in Loch Ness wasn't just moving, it was multiplying. By the end of the week, Loch Ness was surrounded by tension thick enough to feel in the air. Locals who had once laughed off monster tales now refused to go near the water after dark. The pubs in Invermoriston and Fort Augustus filled with talk of missing sheep, of ripples seen at dawn when the lake was still. But the most chilling stories came from the old witnesses, people who'd claimed to see Nessie decades ago, and were now coming forward again. One of them, 82-year-old Malcolm Fraser, was a retired park ranger who swore he hadn't spoken publicly since 1975. Yet when a freelance journalist tracked him down, Fraser said something had changed. His words were measured, but his eyes trembled. "Back then, I saw one," he said. "Now, they're seeing more than one." That's not the same thing. Fraser described how, days before the lockdown, he'd been hiking near the western shore and felt vibrations under his boots, as though something enormous was shifting beneath the ground itself. He claimed the air smelled like iron and ozone. "It wasn't just the water moving," he whispered. "The land moved too." He wasn't alone. A couple camping along the southern bank reported hearing a strange mechanical droning around 3 a.m., followed by what they called a howl underwater. When they turned on their phones to record, the screens froze. Both devices died instantly, batteries drained. 2 hikers in Dores saw spotlights sweeping the lake that same night. Moments later, an object they described as a silver tail or fin broke the surface before sinking silently. Authorities dismissed every account as hysteria caused by the stress of ongoing research activity. But something about the witnesses' consistency made it hard to ignore. Their details matched: the sound, the vibrations, the metallic smell in the air. Then came the photograph. A tourist from Germany uploaded it to social media before her account was locked. Taken from her drone, it captured what looked like a perfect circular ripple pattern. But within it was a distinct wake, a serpentine curve that seemed to cut through the center of the lake. It wasn't wind or waves, it was movement. Within 24 hours, the photo was gone, the woman's account deleted. But those who had seen it described the same haunting detail. At the center of the wake, a single glowing point of light beneath the black water, bright, blue-white, and pulsing, almost like an eye opening. The world didn't hear from Dr. Ilara Monroe again, not officially anyway. After her contract was terminated, she disappeared completely. Her phone went dead, her social accounts scrubbed, her university credentials revoked. For weeks, her name circulated on encrypted message boards, where a few claimed she had fled to the Scottish Highlands to avoid government surveillance. Then, in late November, a YouTuber hiking near Inverfahragig captured footage of something unexpected. In the distance, a campfire burned beside an abandoned fishing shack. A figure stood near the water, cloaked in a thick parka, holding what looked like a small satellite receiver. In the video, the person turns toward the camera just for a second, and the light catches her face. It was unmistakably Ilara. Within hours, the clip went viral, but just as quickly as it appeared, it vanished. The channel was deleted. 2 days later, journalists received an anonymous email titled, "Do not come here." Attached was a single audio file, less than a minute long. In it, waves lapped quietly against the shore, followed by the unmistakable voice of Ilara Monroe, breathless and whispering, "It's not alone, it's communicating." The patterns aren't random, they're responding to the sonar. Then, silence, replaced by a deep, rhythmic pulse echoing through the recorder, a sound that made listeners describe feeling physically ill. Experts who analyzed the leaked audio confirmed that the frequency embedded in the file was infrasound, low enough to bypass conscious hearing but powerful enough to affect heart rhythm and cause anxiety. It wasn't an editing trick. The waveform contained fluctuations consistent with an underwater source. The following morning, Scottish emergency services reported a small fire near the eastern ridge of the loch. They found the remnants of a tent, a burnt receiver, and footprints leading into the water, but none returning. Officials ruled it an unfortunate accident. However, one chilling detail from the report leaked. The last transmission picked up from Ilara's receiver wasn't words, it was data. A signal pulse repeated over and over, each tone perfectly mirrored 12 seconds later, as if something below had heard her and was answering back. By early December, the world was watching Loch Ness again. News channels began circling the story, drawn by the leaked sonar images and the mystery of Dr. Monroe's disappearance. Drone footage from tourists hinted at strange, circular ripples spreading across the lake at night. But when BBC Scotland attempted to air a live segment from the shore, something strange happened. The broadcast failed mid-sentence. Viewers across the UK saw the anchor freeze, her microphone distort into static, and the live feed collapse into black. The outage lasted 41 seconds before programming returned. Producers said the satellite uplink was interfered with, yet technicians later revealed something impossible. The interference hadn't come from above, it originated below. Satellite diagnostics traced the disruption to a point directly under the loch, about 250 meters beneath the surface. There was no infrastructure there, no cables, no possible reason for a signal that strong. In the hours following the blackout, communications near the lake grew erratic. Cell service dropped randomly, drones lost GPS control, and local radio frequencies began picking up an eerie underwater hum, faint but rhythmic. The hum repeated in intervals of 12 seconds, matching the same frequency from Ilara Monroe's final transmission. That night, emergency responders were called to the small village of Dores after residents reported a glow on the water. Witnesses described a soft blue light moving under the lake's surface, tracing a perfect spiral before vanishing. One fisherman, visibly shaken, claimed the light was accompanied by shadows that moved against the current. Long, slender shapes, gliding like serpents, but moving in perfect synchronization. The next morning, Scotland's Environmental Agency issued a statement warning locals to avoid the lake due to a chemical imbalance in the water. But when independent researchers tested samples, they found something far more disturbing. The water's salinity had increased overnight, dramatically, as though something from the sea had entered the loch. That wasn't scientifically possible. Loch Ness has no ocean access deep enough to allow such intrusion. Yet, somehow, salt water had appeared, and whatever was causing it was still there. By evening, satellite imaging detected faint heat blooms across the water's surface, 5 in total, moving in formation. The same number the Deep Archive had warned about weeks earlier. And as dawn broke, sonar buoys anchored along the shoreline began pinging automatically, one word flashing across the monitors again and again: motion. The night of December 9th would later be called the Night of 5 Shadows by locals, a term whispered more than spoken. It began quietly, with a thick fog rolling over the loch just after 8 p.m. The power grid around Inverness flickered twice, then died completely. What followed was unlike anything Scotland had seen in decades. Fishermen anchored near Foyers reported seeing massive shapes moving beneath the surface, larger than any boat, gliding without sound. Witnesses from different vantage points described the same thing: 5 dark silhouettes surfacing one by one, each releasing a ring of phosphorescent light before sinking again. From above, drone footage captured what looked like a pentagonal formation spreading across nearly half a mile of water. At 8:43 p.m., seismic sensors around the highlands registered a vibration, not an earthquake, but a rhythmic pulse. 3 beats, pause. 3 beats, pause. The same interval Ilara Munro had recorded weeks earlier. Wildlife cameras along the shoreline began malfunctioning. When recovered later, several frames showed the water bulging upward as though something was rising beneath it, displacing thousands of gallons in slow motion. Emergency sirens echoed from Fort Augustus. Locals said the air itself began to hum, a deep, resonant tone that made windows shake and metal fences vibrate. Then came the sound, a deafening bellow that rolled through the valley like thunder underwater. Moments later, the fog glowed, blue, then white, then blood red. From the southern ridge, witnesses saw a column of water shoot nearly 60 feet into the air. When it collapsed, the lake went perfectly still. For 2 minutes, silence. Then movement. Dozens of smaller ripples appeared in perfect geometric alignment, spreading outward like clockwork. Something intelligent was moving beneath the loch, not random, not natural. By dawn, military trucks had arrived. Locals were ordered indoors. Drones were confiscated. When questioned, authorities claimed it was a hydrothermal disturbance, but fishermen knew better. They said the water had a smell that night, copper and decay. And for hours afterward, the surface glowed faintly, as though something deep below was still awake and watching. By morning, Loch Ness was sealed off like a crime scene. The military presence was unmistakable. Unmarked vans, sonar buoys being removed, and men in black waterproof suits combing the shoreline with radiation counters. Locals said they'd never seen anything like it. Reporters who tried to film were forced back behind barricades, their footage confiscated. Within hours, the official narrative changed again. Government spokespeople now claimed a natural gas release had caused the glow and tremors, dismissing the sightings as hysteria. But something wasn't adding up. Satellite records showed that the no-fly zone over Loch Ness had been authorized 2 hours before the so-called disturbance. Someone had known it was coming. Even more suspicious, an encrypted drive was leaked to journalists that same day, allegedly pulled from one of the sonar monitors near Dorez. Inside the folder was a single data log, 40 seconds of raw sonar imaging. At first glance, it looked like static, but when enhanced, the outlines became clear. 5 massive shapes positioned in a circle. circle, with a smaller object rising from the center. Its dimensions nearly identical to a human. The drive disappeared just as quickly as it surfaced. News outlets who downloaded it reported corrupted files the next morning, as if something had overwritten the data. Yet one independent analyst in Norway managed to recover 2 frames before his system was remotely wiped. The object in the center of the sonar ring was unmistakable. It was moving upward, arms outstretched, suspended in water, but perfectly still. Soon after, rumors spread that a diver had gone missing that night. His name never appeared in official reports, but locals claimed his boat was still moored near the southern inlet, ropes torn, deck scraped. His equipment was found days later: camera, regulator, and a single note sealed in a waterproof bag. It read, "It's not from here, and it's not leaving." That line was the last documented clue before all media coverage abruptly stopped. Every article, every video, every witness account gone within 24 hours. Loch Ness was silent again, but the question remained: if there was nothing down there, why was the world suddenly forbidden from looking?